Alright guys, the moment of truth is here. Bayonetta 3 reviews have finally dropped on the Nintendo Switch, and I am here to break down what is going on with this game. Should you pick it up? What are the critics saying? What's going on? We're going to break down all of that right here. But before we get into that, what's good everyone? OJ here. Welcome back to another video. Please make sure you hit that like button, subscribe if you're someone new, and click that notification bell to get my videos first. Now, starting off, Bayonetta 3, the third part in the incredible action series, is here. And it started off with an 89 average on Metacritic. So right now, there's still more reviews coming in. So this score could go up or it could go down. But right now, there is 43 reviews as of the time that I'm recording this video with an 89. Now, according to these 43 reviews, 42 of them are positive. There's one mixed, and what positive versus mixed is that mixed is anything I think about 74 and down to about 50 or so. If it's in the 50 range or below, then it's red, as in negative. So there's 0 negative, there's 1 mixed, and there's 42 positive for an average right now of 89. I'm even trying to do my best to refresh and catch any new reviews coming in, but 89, pretty good so far, right around the average of a Bayonetta game. Bayonetta games usually go around the 90 to 91, 92-ish range, so it's all right there in line with previous Bayonetta games. Bayonetta 1 and 2 on the Nintendo Switch has about a 91 average or so, so not bad at all. The series is incredibly good, and the third outing is just as good as the first or second one, if not better, based off of some of what was actually said in these reviews. But it's always hard to kind of gauge what the series did reviews, 10 years ago. This is pretty much a whole new slate of reviewers, different people that reviewed the games back when the Xbox 360 was around, with Bayonetta 1 compared to Bayonetta 2 on the Wii U, which was 8 years ago. I'd pretty much guarantee most of the people didn't review Bayonetta 1 and Bayonetta 2 originally. So you also have to keep that in mind. Now let's go ahead and go over the scores here, because right now there are 4 perfect scores and a ton of 9 out of 10s. So in these videos, I like to go over the top scores, the top to middle-list scores, the middle scores, and the bottom scores. So we are going to get a balanced look at this game from top to bottom. So let's go ahead and go over some of the highlights of this. We're going to start off with Nintendo Life. They gave the game a 10 out of 10 and had this to say: Bayonetta 3 cranks up the chaos, improves the combat, polishes the level design, and adds a ton of new mechanics to the mix, making for the very best entry in the storied series to date. Platinum Games has absolutely nailed it this time around, carefully layering on more ways to engage enemies, piling on the OTT gameplay sequences, and giving us multiple protagonists without upsetting the balance of what makes these games amongst the very best examples of their genre. With excellent performance in docked and handheld modes, incredible visuals, non-stop action, and hugely replayable campaign that's a joy from start to finish, this really is a huge celebration of everything we love about Bayonetta, an action all-timer and one of the biggest highlights of 2022 on Switch or any platform. Wow, what a endorsement from Nintendo Life when it comes down to Bayonetta 3, and I'm very glad to hear that one segment where they stated that there's good performance in docked and handheld modes, which was a little bit of a concern before the launch of the game. Now let's get into VG247, which gave the game a 10 out of 10 and had this to say: as a game, and as a tonic for people sick of buying season passes and DLC, Bayonetta 3 is an essential romp, a love letter to classic Nintendo games that delight in making you laugh, smirk, and feel like an absolute badass. Platinum Games has misfired a little lately, But with this fitting conclusion to the original Bayonetta trilogy, the studio proves it can still fire on all cylinders and then some. This might just be one of the best games on the Nintendo Switch. So if you give it a 10 out of 10, it's definitely one of the best games on the Nintendo Switch. And the misfire he's talking about is Babylon's Fall, because that game was terrible. So understandable there. Now let's go ahead and move into some of the 90 reviews. There were 2 more hundreds, but we're going to go ahead and get into the 90 reviews. I'm going to try to pick a place that I know about here. So Nintendoros has this to say. They gave it a 9.5 out of 10. Bayonetta 3 closes the trilogy of our favorite Umbra Witch with the best installment to date. The gameplay, including giant monsters and Viola, is simply phenomenal. All that combined with an engaging story, an outstanding soundtrack, and the charm of the same old Cereza we all love makes for the best hack and slash on Nintendo Switch. So very impressive there. Seems like the scores are saying that this is the best Bayonetta game of all time, which is definitely good to hear about that, because you never know, sometimes the third entries can be hit or miss in some of the series, but Bayonetta seems to be firing on all cylinders here. So next up is GameSpot. They gave the game a 9 out of 10 and had this to say. I'm not sure whether it's because the game's fantastic music, the use of the word verse to refer to encounters, or her over-the-top style, but when I think of Bayonetta, I can't help but imagine her as a pop star. Bayonetta 3 feels like her Las Vegas residency, a lavish and spectacular show where each number is beautifully choreographed. Every song is a banger, and the guest appearances are sure to delight. It's a fast-paced and joyous adventure that achieves its goals as an abundance of charisma and style. While it might have taken a better part of a decade to get here, the queen is back and she's ready to serve. Man, that is very impressive to see all of it kind of coming together, not only in the gameplay, but also in the presentation. It takes it up a notch or two, because Bayonetta has always been bombastic. She's always been flashy, and it's even better in this game. So very good to hear that. 9 out of 10 from GameStop. Awesome score as well. Next up is Press Start Australia. They gave the game a 9 out of 10 and had this to say. Bayonetta 3 successfully reinvents itself in many ways to offer an experience that feels worthy of the title of sequel. It successfully shakes up the combat from the previous games by implementing new abilities that help keep things familiar but fresh. Some of the gimmicky battles bring the pacing down and dreaded, but ubiquitous Switch-related performance issues remain. As a whole, Bayonetta 3 eclipses its predecessors and truly one of the most bombastic and enjoyable action games you can play. So maybe some of those big kaiju battles, which we talked about, where their performance might slow down a little bit, this person was a little bit harder on that than maybe some of the other outlets beforehand. But either way, it's still shaped up to be an incredible experience. A 9 out of 10 from Press Start Australia. So very good there. Now, next up is The Independent with a 9 out of 10, and they had this to say. Bayonetta 3 is an outrageous and fitting return to form for the Umbra Witch and her posse of Oculus heavy hitters. Substantial improvements and additions to combat mean there are seemingly endless options for different styles of play, as well as making the prospect of revisiting each stage, verse, hidden objective more compelling than it has ever been, with the crowning jewel being Viola's introduction into the franchise. Yo, this is actually really cool that they're saying something like this, because there was some concern about that when it comes to the replay value. There was concern about how they're going to add Viola in. Was it going to cut down things? Was it going to make it too long? Was there going to be an issue? Was she not going to be as fun or versatile to play as Bayonetta? But clearly here, Viola is not a low point. Viola is actually helping out the game when it comes to the variety and the freshness of it. So very good to hear that when it comes to the Viola play in one of these snippets that we're reading here. So next up is a 9 out of 10 from WCCF Tech, and they have this to say. Bayonetta 3 is the series' best entry yet, offering engaging universe-hopping story, bombastic cinematic moments, and refined action that's both accessible and deeper than ever before. The game can feel slightly hemmed in on the Switch, but Platinum pummels every bit of possible performance out of the hardware. Whether you and Bayonetta have a history or not, this is an engagement not to be missed. So very good there. It seems like this person's saying, hey, you know what? Maybe the resolution couldn't have been as high, or there were some things when it comes down to it, but overall, they did a great job of optimization and making sure that the game still runs and looks as great as it can for the hardware that it's running on. And the only reason that Bayonetta is even here is because of Nintendo and the Nintendo Switch. So awesome to see, awesome to hear that Bayonetta is holding up, and Platinum has just done an incredible job with this game, because you have to remember, Platinum to this point, when it comes to their major games outside of Bayonetta 1 and 2, never really had a game that ran at that full smooth 60 frames per second. Remember, the Wonderful 101 port wasn't super optimized for the Nintendo Switch, which is super weird, by the way. And also, Astral Chain was 30 frames, so the fact that they're able to get this game up to where it is, have the visual polish to how it is really cool, because we're hearing great things about the visuals in the game as well. Now let's go ahead and get into some of the 80s reviews. So games.ch gave it an 8.7 out of 10 and had this to say: Bayonetta 3 hits the same notch like the first two parts, but establishes some cool new features, especially for the active use of the demons. The overexciting action is still fun, but suffers a little bit from being too easy and not well balanced. Overall, Bayonetta 3 is a good hack and slay game, I think I meant hack and slash game, but also one that can't fully reach its predecessors. So here's what I'm guessing with that. He says too easy. I'm almost positive that he played on the normal difficulty and not the hardest difficulty. So essentially, the normal mode might have not been hard enough, which I talk about this too, that usually the normal mode is the easy mode in today's days and the hard mode is the normal mode. So I'm guessing that's what happened here when it comes down to games CH when it's too easy, because Bayonetta always has harder difficulties, and I'm almost positive he didn't play on that. But either way, 8.7 out of 10, still very good score, but you might want to tune up that difficulty just a little bit based off of this review right here. So next up is from Checkpoint Gaming. They gave the game an 8.5 out of 10 and had this to say: do you want more of Bayonetta 1 and 2? That's Bayonetta 3. It keeps the heart and soul of the first two games in every sense, but adds even more fun ways to pound your enemies into the dirt with style. It's chock full of action and set pieces, and each more ridiculous than the last. It stays at 100% almost the whole time. Our favorite witch is back in black. So awesome stuff there from Checkpoint Gaming. 8.5. So another 8.5 from MGG, and they had to say this: with this third episode, Bayonetta asserts its dominance over the 3D beat them up with a new darling and destabilizing mechanics, which led to even more enjoyable and powerful combinations than before. An excellent core game married by a flawed technique that causes problems of precision and readability of the action, which is particularly problematic for a game of this type. No need to sulk in your pleasure though. The witch has once again managed to bewitch us during the 15 hours that this new journey lasts. So pretty good length for an action game, 15 hours, not bad. Some issues here and there, which we've already kind of covered, but still 8.5, great score from there. Now next up is from Game Informer. They gave an 8.3 out of 10 and had this to say: Bayonetta 3, for the vast majority of its runtime, is an absolute blast. It's bombastic, over the top, and extravagant for the sake of extravagance, leaving ruins literally in its wake. I'm already going back through each level, trying for better scores, and I have no immediate plans of stopping. I may be hesitant about the series' future, but at the present, this is the best Bayonetta has ever been. So we're probably gonna have to read the full review to see why it reviewed at an 8.3, especially considering that Game Informer had the cover article and everything. It seemed like they were very excited to play the game, but definitely lower when it comes to the reviews than previous Bayonetta games. Although, of course, there are other Bayonetta games that have reviewed in the 8s or 8.3 or even lower when it comes down to it. But no, still a great score from Game Informer. Now, next up, we're gonna get into some of the 80s on the dot scores. So VGC gave it an 8 out of 10 and had this to say: while some ideas get lost in Bayonetta 3's endless sprint to keep you entertained, there's no other action game with this imagination, wit, or style. Prepare to explore its mad depths for weeks. So very good there. Also, Twinfinite with an 8 out of 10, and they had this to say: Bayonetta 3 is an ode to the longtime fans who stuck with the game since 2009. While it's certainly not without its obvious flaws and missteps, I can't imagine that fans would be very disappointed with how this third explosive entry has turned out. The way is open for even more shenanigans and adventures set in this colorful universe, and it's exciting to see what our Umbra Witches will bring to the table in a new era. So very good there as well. Now we are going to go into the lowest score at this point, and that is from Gfinity. They gave it a 7 out of 10 and had this to say: Bayonetta 3 may not reinvent the wheel, but its lightning fast action and engaging gameplay push the Switch to its limits. So there you go. Not bad, but still 7 out of 10. Lowest score. So far, these are the scores. I'm trying to refresh. There are some more scores coming in as I'm looking through all of this, but for the most part, it stays the same. Multiple 100 or 10 out of 10s, multiple 9 out of 10s. For the most part, this game is the best in the series and looking very good. So I'm very happy to see that Bayonetta 3 had a successful review launch on the Nintendo Switch, one of the best games of the year, 6th best Switch game of the year, and #1 most shared Switch game of 2022 when it comes down to it. So I'm pretty sure some of the controversy had to do with that, but I think that this game's going to sell a lot better than the previous Bayonetta games because of that and because of the great scores. I think people are really going to go out there and support this one a lot more than they have before in the past. So what are your thoughts when it comes to Bayonetta 3 and the review scores so far? 89 average. Are you picking up Bayonetta 3 at some point this week or next week or later down the line? Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. All right, guys, that wraps it up for this video here. Thank you so much for watching. I do appreciate it. Please make sure you hit that like button. Subscribe if you're someone new. Click that notification bell, and we will see you for the next video. Peace.